All right, it looks like we are off. We've got FrenchLightningJohn on the right, representing Cutie's coaches. We got Professor School on the left, representing Team Vileplume. Quick note on Professor School. I believe this is his first randomizer official tournament event. In fact, I think he played his first ever randomizer at SG Live, which I was there for that, so we got to hang out. And he's been practicing hard, improving very quickly, and he's representing the power suit for his team, which is, as Plumps mentioned, Dash Recall. And since I am the primary developer for Dash Recall, I will also be here to answer some questions along the way, if anybody has any, and provide some perspective on things. Plumps, I think you've called a few Dash Recall races so far. What do you think is in store in this particular matchup?
Yeah, definitely Dash Recall has been pretty interesting to me just because it feels almost like a mini hack with the amount of changes there's been. In terms of the players, yeah, FrenchLightningJohn's a veteran. He's been around for a really long time, so definitely experience. And Professor School, I haven't really raced with him, but I think my knowledge is that he's a really smart and like thoughtful runner. He really tries to, I mean, he practices a lot and he analyzes his practices, because I've done asyncs with him, and I like how he really just kind of just explains like all his thought processes and what he did and what he thought he did wrong. So
that's a big part of being a competitive rando player. There is a lot more that goes into this, I think, especially as you get closer and closer to the top level play than just randomly going places and finding items. But yeah, he's I think a real up and coming player. He's on a very good team. Obviously, if he were to take this down, they would sweep this second round and move on to the semis versus Will Cut Breast for Rupees, which I believe would be somewhat of a rematch. I think both of those teams were in the same division during the regular season. But yeah, FrenchLightningJohn, on the other hand, very experienced. He's been through the ringer many times. But yeah, as you mentioned, Dash Recall plays a good bit differently than most of the other randomizers or I guess modes that we've currently used. Sort of the general premise is to kind of take a relook at the vanilla map structure. Old vanilla map Rando has some, just to be quite frank, some pretty severe restrictions, particularly at the top of the meta play. And so what we were trying to do is come up with a way that would sort of make a few other decision points viable and a few different item loadouts viable. And the only real way to do that without adding in like portals or like extra elevators to different places in the game is to sort of rebalance some of the other things in the game. Some of them I think have been really good. I think some of them haven't been overly popular. We can kind of talk about that as we go, but we've got some some plans to change a few things. Obviously, we want to keep some level of the balance that we've achieved, but at the same time be responsive to the player feedback. So yeah, there's a lot of new stuff in this.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see the possible divergences that the runners could take. Unfortunately, not going to happen in the beginning since it didn't have power bombs for meme route, but going up direct ship is always possible. And if we find something like one of the new items, like the pressure valve, which we can explain, that would give him another option to go up to Meridia that would normally not exist in a vanilla or a standard major minor split.
Right. You know, the funny thing for me, and this is just, I guess, more of a personal thing, it's less about me having a vested stake in the fact that I, contributed to designing this, but very similarly to how when Area Randomizer first came on the scene, like in terms of it being in its first sort of couple of tournaments, it was extremely obvious, like, that it took a few tournaments for the broader scope of a lot of the players to kind of figure out how to play it, if that makes sense. There were a lot of, like, in hindsight, just sort of like glaringly bad meta plays happening. And so Dash Recall is kind of in that state right now, which is I don't think there's a single player that's absolutely 100% figured it out. But at the same time, I don't even know exactly what figuring it out means yet, because it's still in its infancy, sort of in competition. But I can already tell that people are sort of improving some of their decision making. So it's kind of neat to watch that happen in real time.
Yeah, John actually going to take the time to check Gauntlet, which is, of course, a little slower without power bombs, but Gauntlet's value, I feel like, definitely is a bit better because it can have the 2 new mini suit items, as well as, again, in general, the way the items have been rebalanced. There's fewer E-tanks and more major items.
Yeah, for sure. That E-tank on the surface doesn't seem that great, but it could turn out to be pretty good depending on... Everything depends very, very much on the paths that the 2 runners take, what they find, etc. So yeah, the plasma beam pickup is really nice. Plasma's still easily, probably the most impactful beam in Dash Recall. Definitely so, I think, in vanilla, unless you have to have Ice Beam to progress. So yeah, that's going to maximize their damage, and then from here on out, their charge upgrades will dictate the power of the beam from now.
Yeah, definitely charge upgrades have increased value from the immediate plasma pickup since you've already hit the damage cap. And John does find power bombs, but so does Prof. So unfortunately, the Gauntlet time sync probably won't pay off here, but still not the biggest of deficits for John right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, there a lot of stuff from the early game. It's difficult to tell exactly what the impact will be until you get a little bit more to the mid and later portions. But if it turns out to be the type of seed where the path that Professor School takes ends up being somewhat linear, which still does happen, and it pretty much in any randomizer it can happen. Nice super on that blue door. Then that Gauntlet investment will turn out to not be very valuable. But I mean, that's just kind of the case with randomizer. Like, sometimes your investments don't pan out the way you would hope they would. This would be a good time for me to mention, though, something that I don't think has been talked about a ton, or that maybe the average person who's just viewing might not be totally aware. But every various seed that you watch has a particular seed speed applied to it that dictates to a certain degree where a lot of the items are placed. Dash doesn't, currently utilize anything like that. Instead, we use what we're calling sort of it's called verified fill. So instead of placing one item at a time within the logic, what it does is, I think it places like the first 4 items or something, like Morph Ball, the first major, and then I think the progression miners. And then after that, it just completely randomly places everything else. Then, because of the updates that Mass has made to the code, it can run thousands of examples, like, in a very short amount of time. And so it checks to verify if it can be completed within the logic that way. And if a seed can be, then it generates. If it can't be completed within the logic, then it reshuffles itself. So basically, there's no way to... plus, I'm just going to be honest with you. I think, quote unquote, reading the seed is kind of a little bit overblown in terms of how big of a deal some people say that it is in terms of competition. But there's really none of that you can really do here. It really is about actual randomness and making decisions relative to what you think your opponent's going to do.
Yeah, I feel like with all the new items and increased amount of locations, that movement and execution, I mean, if it didn't already matter a lot, really matters a lot here. And stuff like being able to do lower Norfair on one trip definitely puts you in a good spot to win the race.
For sure. I'm not gonna lie to you. the way that we set up parts of Dash, it's not in an extreme way, but I mean, it is meant to, if you can legitimately pull off some really difficult things, it's meant to reward that in a way that maybe you wouldn't be able to do in a lot of situations in the other randomizers. But that's not going to be the case in every seed. So just like every other randomizer, you know, sometimes the path that you take is going to be fruitful, sometimes it's not. But yeah, man, I'm excited. Hopefully we'll get to see a few of the new items, but even if we don't, you know, you got to plan around that too.
Yeah, it looks like Prof is just going for the D-Boost X-Ray, which I'm not, you know, positive how experienced he was with this trick throughout the season, but I mean, it looks like he's definitely been practicing this since he's nailed all the D-Boosts so far.
Perfect.
Yeah, nice job.
And a charge upgrade, not as big of an upgrade in this as just the one singular charge would be in a normal randomizer, but a little bit extra damage and could potentially help save some time down the line. One thing I will tell you, Plumps, I don't mind mentioning this. Sometimes we get feedback that is very helpful. Like sometimes people actually give us like analysis of like, hey, I think this is going on. I'm not sure this is good for the meta. This is what's going on. But a lot of times some of the data we get back is just comments that don't have any analysis at all. One of the things that I've picked up on is that I don't think that the beam changes, I think the beam changes are probably the least popular thing. And so we have already started to work on a few changes for what Dash Recall might look like after League. We just can't change it right now because we don't want to do anything in the middle of a competition tournament. But that is something that I think will change moving forward. We'll probably get a little bit closer back to the original beams, but I do want to have at least a few charge upgrades in there because I feel like having a few extra ways to get extra damage that's not isolated to just one thing is actually healthier for balance.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I wouldn't really call myself a very high level runner, so not sure how much valuable my input is, but I do like the way you structured things, especially with having multiple upgrades. And like, yeah, if the game is not in like the perfect state, I think it's you know, quite reasonable to be able to make like small micro changes based on how you've set this up.
Oh man, Professor School had it and that just accidentally turned around. I think he was expecting to get a wall jump there, but now he's back through. Looks like we got a little bit of divergence here. John is going to go up. So yeah. Anytime there's divergence, we got some chances for craziness here.
Yeah, John is a player that I've seen that tends to go up more often when he can. Yeah, because interesting, we pretty much not really found anything in terms of hard progress. I mean, Prof is in a pretty good spot to do heated runs, but Wreckship is one of those plays that could really decide the game if an important item is there, like a suit.
100%, and that that happens in a lot of the seeds. In fact, I would say that if there is a pretty major difference in the item loadout in Wreckship versus down here, Dash Recall on average, not every seed, but on average is going to provide more opportunities for both runners to make potentially competitive plays. That's a real nice thing.
Yeah, that's huge for Prof.
But it doesn't always work out that way. So we'll kind of see if Wreckship hits or not. I have straight up won some races on doing Wreckship early when my opponent didn't, and I have straight up lost some races doing Wreckship early when my opponent didn't. So, we'll kind of see how it turns out here.
Yeah, that heat shield is one of the best items Prof can actually find because not only does it make it so that he does not take any damage, like no damage in Upper Norfair, it's also a great item to possibly just take straight to Ellen because it will reduce half the damage down there, which is actually stronger than the gravity suit reduction in
and
Ellen.
You know what, it's going to be ironic, I don't want to get too into the nuances here, but like, have you ever played any other competitive game, Plumps, like, and actually tried to like climb rankings and stuff, like anything out there that actually has like a legitimately objective like ranking system? I
mean, I wouldn't say I was good, but stuff like League, I guess I've dabbled in before.
Perfect example. Okay, so I used to be before I started speedrunning Super Metroid, I was a relatively competitive Heroes of the Storm player, right? I wasn't on the pro league, but I actually played in a lot of like Hero and Storm League games with some of the pros. And so one thing that you learn is any kind of change that you make to any of the heroes or anything like that is going to affect the top end of the spectrum differently than it might the average player, right?
Oh yeah, I'm aware
to
of that.
that end, having that in mind with a lot of the item decisions here in Recall, that heat shield thing that you just pointed out, like, y'all, I'm telling you, part of the reason that we wanted to look at plasma as there's the various suit too.
Nice. Okay.
That's a big pickup for Professor School. But part of the reason we wanted to change plasma is because it is wildly powerful when you're doing hell runs. If you know what you're doing, it's about as good as screw attack at protecting you. So not only does it do massive damage, not only does it do allow you to have in the scope of Super Metroid speedrunning, basically free boss fights. Like in regular, rando, if you have microwave, you don't have to do jack squat to kill like 3 of the bosses. But on top of all of that, it can actually be one of the most powerful items to have as a utility item only in Lower Norfair. And the better players who are going to do that more frequently, like I promise you, if we ran this 100,000 times, we would start to notice how crazy plasma is. All right, John, I'm going to root for you to find a good item up here so we have like an interesting situation. Hopefully it won't just be like all E-tanks or something.
Yeah, Prof's definitely in a pretty decent spot for Ellen. I assume he's at least, again, proficient with the bootless dive. Because, I mean, checking Bell Mountain for sure, pretty reasonable, but you never really want to go Croc. Even though I guess it would be a faster fight with having that plasma beam pickup.
I do like this pickup by John here on the left side, even though it only turned out to be a missile. I like the check. There's fewer supers in this, and he obviously is not aware yet of, potentially getting Varia, on the normal route towards Norfair. But especially an extra power bomb or super relatively early can be really, really helpful for potential hell runs. And also supers are probably more valuable in this. They're super valuable in randomizer anyway, but probably even more valuable in this relative to the beams.
Oh, nice sponge bath, John. Yeah, I was gonna say that John going up here with not much equipment means that you definitely had to be confident with his movement and shows there, because that is not a check I like doing, at least having to use the bombs or pat bombs to boost there.
John is probably going to need, unless we end up with kind of a weird seed where like Suitless Meridia is forced or something, he probably needs to find something big either here or in his next check for it to not potentially be getting behind. That is exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing here is, like, I'm really interested to see what John chooses to do once he gets to Kraid. And even this back, see, this is another kind of interesting thing. This play would never happen in any of the other randomizers, because the player would simply leave wreck ship, go down and do identically what the other guy on the left side has done, and basically just be ahead, like literally right now. However, because John has the option to leave wreck ship with his gravity suit, pick up different item sets, like he has no idea what's going to be in Meridia, it's still possible that the investment here couldn't be very fruitful, which will then allow Professor School to have a little bit more potential leeway down the line to catch up. So this is kind of interesting how the routing works out. John is not forced to do Meridia right now, okay? But I've noticed that has been the play that most people have made. I'm very curious, now that I'm out of the playoff and I can kind of share my perspective on the meta. I'm very curious how many people in the future will pick up Pressure Valve or Gravity and either Brinstar or Wreck Ship early and then refuse to make the Meridia play. Because so far, just about everybody has done it. And so I'm interested in that the other way as like a counter pick to that.
Oh yeah, I was commenting on the Spazer, but I realized it could be possible for if John or Prof commits to Suitless Meridia. I think yeah, for sure, he probably needs to find Pressure Valve at some convenient location because just where Gravity is just super far for him. John could, yeah, it looks like he's checking Plasma here makes sense because this is by far the best time to do it. And I imagine that both runners are probably thinking it's quite likely the other runner did the opposite thing. So you would want to follow where the item's logic takes you.
So nice screw attack here. I will be honest with you though, once I find Plasma, and particularly when I have Plasma and Varia, screw attack for me is more of like a, I don't even know what to call it, I guess a luxury item. Because the Plasma is going to be so good at protecting you in Lower Norfair anyway. But it is nice to have. It definitely cleans up a lot of, it minimizes a lot of mistakes, let's put it that way. And since Professor School only has Various Suit, which provides 50% damage reduction, it's nice to have that as a protection so you don't get in any weird situations and die in Lower Norfair. So that's nice to pick up. And what did we find at Plasma? Ice Beam?
Yeah, that's a huge pickup for John. Like, you don't need Ice or Speed in this mode anymore because of the changes to the map layout, but that's just a location where I'm almost certain that Prof is never going to go there by the time he's in Go mode.
No, particularly because of where Gravity is placed in this one. You're right. All right, here we go. Suitless Lava Dive and, or excuse me, Bootless Lava Dive. And remember that the Various Suit in this does not provide quite as much environmental protection as it does in the other randomizers. So you don't get a bazillion attempts at this.
Yeah, this looks super clean though from Prof. Just nails it first try.
Crush. Nice.
But yeah, you see how even though he got it in one shot, he took a lot of damage there from the lava.
Yeah, Varia providing 75% environmental damage in a lot of the other randomizers. I don't have a problem with it. It just depends. It's that whole thing. The rules dictate the play, right? And by rules, in this case, I mean like even how much damage reduction you give to things or damage. But the fact that Varia blocks so much environmental damage in the other randomizers, it really, really, really makes a lot of the quote unquote more difficult situations like way safer and way more free. Like you get way more attempts at it. So we wanted to kind of prioritize actually pulling off the thing that you're going for instead of just giving you a million chances at it.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see the fact that the runners diverge this much means, for example, here John's gonna have a slower Dragon fight because he doesn't really have a shortcut, while Prof is having to slowly IBJ out of Screw, and that's not a location that John's gonna check at all because he'll be in Go mode by that time.
Yeah, also in regular, sort of like Varia, which again, this isn't a bad thing. It just kind of is what it is. But if John had the charge beam and that beam loadout, he would basically be able to fire, I think it's 6 charge shots at Dragon and kill her, and would probably do it in one swoop. So the fact that he had to spend a little extra time in the room. Oh, there's that pressure valve. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Professor School doesn't have that. Might actually be good for Professor School, actually. In terms of the potential meta play. But anyway, but yeah, the fact that he actually had to use a lot of ammo, John did, and the fight took a little bit longer, I think that kind of rewarded a little bit more of the speedrunning skill. Now, Professor School does have bombs, but is looks like he's electing to do the hypo jump here.
Yeah, I've also noticed that most runners are now going for the right side. When I think way back when only like a select few could do this trick, they would always do it from the left side.
Okay, now he's going to the bomb. I don't mind this at all. I mean, everybody's different. I would have just single bomb jumped this anyway, just because I would be confident in my ability to get up there within 20 or 30 seconds, as opposed to, yeah, I could get the hypo jump in 5 to 10 seconds, maybe, right? But probably unlikely. So I think this is a perfectly fine decision. That doesn't look good. What is happening here?
Yeah, I am not sure. Because this timer is still running.
Oh God, that looks terrible. Does anybody know how Prof plays? Does he play on an emulator or does he play on a SD2?
Oh no, this is really bad because I don't remember him saving anywhere. Oh, before lava dive? Okay.
Yeah, that grapple up there for John, not as useful as it would have been prior to facing Dragon. Although I probably still, in his position, probably would have picked it up just because there's a possibility for, like, you know, Varia to be top of wreck ship, and the grapple is very helpful in suitless lower Norfair. But yeah, that's not a huge deal. But yeah, that's really bad for Prof. Unfortunately, I do not know a ton about the inner workings of why things crash. I actually had one of my very first crashes in a rando seed last week. It was like an area seed, and when it tried to load one of the areas, it looked very similar to what his looked like, actually. Does anybody out there know what might have happened there?
Yeah, like I've seen some crashes myself, but definitely not in the middle of a bomb jump. So that's just really unfortunate on Prof. Unfortunately, missing the first attempt here at the dive. Oh, he's got low health too. Yeah, no, he's not going to make it up to the top.
It's actually a heads up play by John, remembering to it's not, you know, it's a bit of a frame saver, but remembering to break the tube on his way in, because he already has gravity suit. So later on, when he's done with all the Norfair stuff, he'll have that broken so he can leave. Yeah, I feel particularly bad for Prof here too, because he executed his first high jump bootless lava dive so flawlessly, and then to have to reset it and then, you know, mess up the second one, it's kind of tough situation. Unfortunately, John, I think maybe missed the last super. Did he get 2 supers in?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's
Yeah.
just late. Yeah. Yeah, no, it always just like just as a runner, I can totally imagine like you're playing so well, executing at such a high level, and then something like outside your own control really sets you back.
Yeah, that is not ideal at all. hopefully I'll try to reach out to Prop at the end of this and see if we can. Again, I'm not technically skilled like a lot of other people, but I'd like for our devs to get a hold of it just to see if there's something on our end that got messed up. But as I mentioned, I recently learned that sometimes stuff like this is actually the hardware itself. So I don't know, obviously, what led to it, but hopefully we can figure out what it is and get it solved if it's on our end.
Yeah, that looks good. Nice job.
There we go. Also, we just saw on John's side one of the changes. In major minor distributions, Kraid's closet there is kind of, particularly on vanilla map, is kind of OP. So we removed that major, so he got a power bomb from there, and that major was relocated into Lower Norfair, actually. The Mickey Mouse Missiles has one of the 38 major locations.
Yeah, that was one of the changes that really made sense to me the most, just because of the fact that you have to go to Kraid at some point, and it's not really a big detour, so just having 2 items here kind of felt like how high jump was broken in the very beginning of Rando, and that E-Tank was moved away.
Right. It also impacts area too. Like if you're playing vanilla map area, major minor, then Kraid gets even more value, especially earlier on, you know. But anyway, so that was a change that we thought was appropriate. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like John's fine, or not John, Prof is fine now, so again, yeah, it could have been hardware, it could have been just a freak incident. Definitely will be investigated here.
Ooh, that's actually a nice find. Particularly space jump when you don't have high jump boots gets even more value, so that's real nice. Okay, looks like John is. Did John skip Okay, so he's not going to get the various suit. Again, that is actually a reasonable skip, and because he already has plasma and a good number of supers, the Lower Norfair potential Hell Run is actually you know, a little bit easier, but I guess it depends on if he's going to clear out some of Bubble Mountain or not. If he clears out Bubble Mountain and gets screwed, it'll be even easier, but it looks like he is not going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, this is still pretty reasonable with his loadout. It's just, yeah, chat mentioning some of the plays he made there were a little inconsistent because of the fact that he went all the way for Spazer but didn't go for Ice, because I believe that should be a little slower, as well as not picking up Grapple if he was willing to commit to this, because Grapple is so useful for that last farming room.
Right, I agree with Audra in chat.
Supers.
Yeah, I agree with Audra in chat about that. Like if I kind of feel like, I mean, I realize sometimes people aren't planning like their next 5 moves in a row. I mean, sometimes you're just kind of thinking about what's in front of you, you know. But if you're going to skip, if you're planning on skipping future locations and potentially missing Various Suit, then I think the grapple would have been worth the, I don't know, 10 to 12 seconds you would have needed to get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, at the very least, John has a much easier lava dive since he can just grab jump from the bottom.
So the heat damage will start right now. This is considered Lower Norfair because obviously with future area stuff we're working on very similarly to how the other randomizers we play. This is a Lower Norfair room. So the heat shield will provide 50% heat reduction from here all the way until you get past the 3 Musketeers. That's another kind of interesting thing about heat shield is when you have traditionally done hell runs, you get past the 3 Musketeers, but then you have an additional room that you have to get through before you're completely safe. Not the case here with heat shield.
Yeah, I would be personally surprised if John went to screw attack right now, but we'll see.
Another cool thing, though, I will say in John's defense, one thing that I kind of appreciate is this is a very aggressive play. I personally would have liked to have seen him do the refill at screw before this. But anyway, I can still appreciate this play because this is the kind of play that you would literally never do in this particular context in the other one. So we are getting to see a different style of play, which is pretty cool.
Ooh, and John's not going to go for the... No, now he's going for charge ice. Yeah, there we go.
Also, him not having that screw is probably a little bit bigger with just how aggressive he's playing.
Yeah. Oh, no, he needed one more shot. Okay, I think he needs to CF pretty soon here. Yeah, like that plasma beam nerf is definitely affecting him in this room. And meanwhile, nice fight from Prof. I was not even watching the whole Ridley fight.
All right. Prof is one charge upgrade away from having full beam combination, or I guess full beam damage. No, he doesn't. I think he's got 2 more. But that's actually another thing we're gonna. I think in our next update, we are going to not only change some of the vanilla values back to the beams, but also reduce the number of charge upgrades by 1, so that each one is like more impactful. That was some of the. That seemed to be some of the feedback that we got from a lot of players.
Okay, yeah, nice save by John. They're definitely going to be rewarded. We're going to like seeing the space jump here, making amphitheater a lot easier.
Yeah, this is kind of a, the space jump is nice, but if I were in his position with this particular loadout, would have preferred probably, like, the space jump isn't really going to help a ton in here. The space jump, in my opinion, is much more helpful in Meridia, but getting, like, I would have preferred to get an E-Tank there. However, if an E-Tank is at Firefly, then it kind of doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, in the worst case, he can just farm some more PBs, but yeah, it's, again, a little rough because based on this health, oh yeah, actually, yeah, Prof's checking Fireflies now. They're both
yeah, that's what we're about to find out.
Yeah, like if he has to CF again, that's gonna be a lot longer of a farm. Okay, it is an E-Tank.
Good for John.
Definitely good for John.
And that's Rando.
Yeah, because with only a 200 power beam, he needs to have 30 or close to 30 supers for sure for Ridley, and not having grapple is gonna make that farm more time consuming.
Space jump does help a good bit here in the dark, not having high jump boots. I mean, you can still get out, if you're prepared for it, but sometimes when it's dark and you can't tell what you're doing, you get a little nervous. It's a little hard to get out, so the space jump makes that a lot easier.
Yeah, John has to use a few power bombs here, but at least he does have regular bombs, and his health is good. Like with this health and the heat shield, the drain won't be too bad, making his way to the pre-Ridley room.
Yeah, and you got to remember too, this is kind of the power of the heat shield, which is part of the reason why I don't overly mind his aggressive play, and I actually think it's kind of neat. But he's got what, 9 energy tanks, but it's 50%, so it's like having 18 without a suit. You know what I'm saying? Which, let me tell you, Plumps, I don't know about you, but if someone handed me 18 energy tanks, I would hell run Lower Norfair like all day.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like Prof will go for Croc, which it's a little unfortunate, but kind of where he's at. He's not even, equipped for Meridia at all. So, I mean, he might be happy even to find like a pressure valve plus some Meridia item here.
Here's the thing we got to remember, though, too. There's one thing that sometimes gets lost in the shuffle about what you are, quote unquote, more encouraged or allowed to do. Just because you can do something, or it's more likely for you to be able to do something, like play this aggressively in upper and lower Norfair like John is doing, it doesn't actually mean it's always the fastest thing for time, right? Everything really comes down to for time. We have seen people do multiple times actually in this league playoff. We've seen people do like earlier lower Norfairs than is necessary and end up actually costing a lot of time. So he's been doing fine, but the reality is this has been very slow.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, especially without, you know, having the best loadout, no secure attack, no grapple. Like, having to farm here, this is going to be a really long time. That's just going to lose like multiple minutes for John.
I do agree with this play though. If you feel strongly about your 30 super Ridley fight, you can basically just farm here until you get 30 supers and then do it, because remember, you have essentially double the amount of energy. And for me, if I was going in with like 3 full energy tanks, that's essentially kind of like 6. And I would feel pretty comfortable doing that fight. I mean, you need to be careful not to make any mistakes. Everything's execution based, but it's definitely a viable thing to do.
Yeah, chat mentioning Waterway, because I'm thinking Prof at this point doesn't check Waterway, doesn't check Gauntlet. But for sure he's probably thinking about how he's lost time with the resets and what John might be doing. I feel like Waterway might be a play, just because if he doesn't feel very good about his position. Because normally, you know, you probably should just go ship first.
True. You know, everybody's different. Personally, and I want to be clear, the philosophy that I'm about to espouse here doesn't always work, right? But generally speaking, I believe that it's better to just worry about what you're doing. I think that's going to help. Let me put it to you this way. I have seen people play themselves out of a winnable situation more frequently than playing themselves back into one, if that makes sense.
No, so, I completely agree. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, his situation is not good, but if I were him, I would just be like, it sucks, but I'm just going to keep playing this normal and just kind of live with what happens. And maybe the other guy made some different decisions and it didn't work out for them either, you know?
All right, yeah, so John has more than enough ammo. I think he's firing off a couple of charge shots. That should be... I'm surprised he's not switching to supers already. Because, again, this damage is not good. Like, it's only doing, like, 2 missiles of damage.
It's also slow. I would be very careful not to whiff any supers here. But I would be doing an all super fight. The part of the problem is the 12 seconds that he refused to invest for the grapple beam would have further encouraged the all super fight, because then you could just farm supers back up fairly quickly after the fight's over. And in Crystal Flash, look at you, Plumps. You nailed Professor School's thought process. Unfortunately, not going to be any progression over here. Maybe it'll still be like a good item, like high jump boots or something.
Yeah, that's probably the best thing left. Actually, yeah, there's not a whole lot. I think we've seen everything besides looks like high jump and spring ball and like 1 charge upgrade. Yeah, unfortunately, a bit of stream lag. We missed John's fight here, but he's got more than enough health. Yeah, not an E-tank, of course, at the Ridley, but can just spend some time farming here. He has already 11 power bombs at least. So farming some extra power bombs and enough for CF is fine here.
Yep, it was high jump boots. I'm really curious to see when we get done with this race, assuming that Prof, and I mean, we could even go check the VOD, but assuming Prof finishes and we get to see like the official times at the end for each zone, the amount of time that Professor School spent in Lower Norfair is going to be significantly less than John. However, that is balanced by the fact that John spent essentially no time in Upper Norfair, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of neat to see it play out this way.
Yeah, I mean, Prof didn't have like anything at all for Meridia, so he's just trying to find gravity as soon as possible.
So yeah, Plasma, obviously nerfed in this, not nearly as powerful. It takes a little longer to kill the creatures. But again, if you practice the strats with different loadouts, it makes getting out of here way, way safer. So for those of you guys still playing Recall in the next rounds of the tournament, that would be an area that might be a good meta practice space in case it comes up. It's something I spent a lot of time working on when I was getting ready for week 6. Unfortunately for me, it didn't work out that I needed to practice that because I died in Meridia.
Yeah, and here's another spot where John's kind of in an awkward situation. I mean, this room is a safe room for him, but he's still not sure what his plan is for getting through these final couple rooms here. He's actually just going for it.
He kind of has to. Also, guys, remember that Plasma is slightly nerfed, so know your missile strats. But he should do that. He should be able to do this if he knows the.
No, John! Oh, the wall jump or not having high jump there. Oh man.
Did he say he did say before Ridley?
He's definitely saved, yeah, like in the save room before Ridley, but I think he only saved on the way down, not on the way up. Yeah. Yeah, we have a race. I mean, this is crazy. I'm not sure who's ahead, but like Prof could pull a little ahead here once he finds gravity if he goes there second location.
Yeah, it depends because it's funny in Recall you are not always completely incentivized to do the E-Tank second. But if he does, yeah, that'd be interesting. And look at that, still microwave making it pretty free. But yeah, I would encourage, I mean, not even just for Dash Recall. I do think it's a little more viable in Recall in a higher percentage of seeds, but I would very much encourage people to, the Three Musketeer room is one of the biggest, I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is, but it is like one of the rooms that you want to be very familiar with just about any potential loadout and have very specific strategies for. Having a specific way of getting through the room with no high jump, no speed, but plasma is a thing you need to be familiar with, etc. Like there's a whole bunch of different loadouts when you're trying to practice that you need to like kind of get your stuff straight for. Because if John had managed, particularly the first Key Hunter room on like the Key Hunter staircase, if he had managed that better with his plasma beam, he would have not even been in that position to begin with.
No, absolutely. That three musketeers and also the Key Hunter escape is it's literally decided races. It's even decided an entire playoff match.
You're right. You're 100% right.
Oh, and Prof is going to make the right play in this seed. Like this is huge. I mean, he's just gonna go after this. But he's got a pretty good loadout. Just no ice.
If John went in right this second and was able to kill Ridley, I still think this would be competitive because Prof has, got to backtrack to Meridia. But given the fact that this lower Norfair like farming situation stuff is taking so long without that grapple beam, isn't it really funny in this particular context? And I'm not even exaggerating here. In this particular, very specific context, the decision to skip grapple might have actually, for time, made the difference.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's ironic just because I remember casting a John game a couple weeks back where he skipped grapple and then went back for it because he thought he needed it, but ended up not needing it.
I gotta hand it to John though. If he'd have pulled all this off, like kind of on the first go around, especially if he had been able to be a little bit more comfortable with those earlier rooms, that upper Norfair skip into down here would have been fast. So yeah, I like the idea that you have the option to do some of this stuff, but you really got to execute it if you're going to get it for time.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows how, even with a decent loadout, it's not easy at all. And just even like one mistake or one kind of flub of how John like messed up a bit on the very end of the escape, just, I mean, you're dying because you're unfortunately taking damage the whole time.
Yeah, Plumps. I always kind of crack up when I hear, particularly coming from, sometimes chatters who actually aren't competing. I get a little bit of a chuckle from how quote unquote free stuff is. It's free until you're actually in the room doing it, right? And you have to do it or you lose. So yeah, when the pressure's on, it's a whole different situation.
Yeah, like I don't think it's like it's not. I think we're at the point where it's not over, but John needs to just nail this escape to even have a shot here. Yeah, because School has a speed advantage too, which is pretty much nullifying the ice advantage John has, as well as a much more charge upgrades.
Once again, Plasma providing that excellent utility. Now, this time, hopefully this key under staircase goes a little bit better with Heat Shield and Plasma and regular bombs. He has a way to do as close to a normalized setup as you can. He should be able to get through, but you got to be very careful. This is looking much better. Yep, see? Easy peasy. I didn't see, was it Botwin? No, I don't remember. What was it?
I think it might have been the last charge upgrade. I saw something flashing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it looks like the only spots left we haven't checked are, guessing, what is it, watering hole? Or I don't know if John checked that.
John got every clip that time.
Yep. Yeah. Of course, the second time that happens. Yeah, we've seen Jack and was it top of ship. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like there's times where if you have to do kind of like a long, difficult stretch run like the escape, if you kind of mess up the beginning, then I don't know, it feels like it messes with you a bit and you're already kind of on edge because like, oh my god, I can't make any more mistakes. And then of course you end up making the mistake at the end.
Oh yeah, for sure. Got to keep your wits about you. I'm curious, Plumps. Just let's just do some fun, wild speculation. How much faster do you think John got through this upper Norfair section, coming back to this elevator, going down with the wave and plasma, than he would with the space jump going top?
Oh, like as in just doing reverse cathedral?
Yeah.
I don't. Going backwards or with space jump mostly nullifies it, but he saved. I mean, I would say maybe he saved like 5-10 seconds. You might guess. Maybe only around 5. Like it's a lot closer with if you have space jump for cathedral.
Yeah, I think I went and tested all those scenarios like several weeks ago when I was prepping for my Chozo vanilla map matches. And I don't remember what the exact numbers were, but even without space jump, the difference was actually smaller than I anticipated. But obviously, one of the primary benefits, as you mentioned, is getting the power bombs, but also, like, if you are having to hell run out of there, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this case, he didn't have to. But yeah, it's not a mega huge difference. Well, look at that. Professor School's back in the lead.
Super. Okay. Ran to the left. Yeah, Prof is gonna win this by a couple minutes, looks like. Nice Metro Room 1. Cat, do not jinx this. I think one time was enough.
Yeah, no, we definitely don't want to see that happen. I'm a little surprised neither one of them attempted to skip a major boss and still get a Torian in this race, but I guess that's something that nobody's going to bust out till the semis or the finals, I guess. So it looks like Prof, he's going to have the speed Zeb skip available to him and a much easier baby skip. There are players skipping baby with a lot of different loadouts right now. For me, I still have to have the sort of traditional loadout. So this will be, as far as what he's probably most familiar with, probably going to be closest to that.
Yeah, and the beam damage kind of mattering here too, because they're on like about the same ammo, and then with the MB1, it looks like both runners will have about like, what is it, half of the fight for charge shots.
Yes, Professor School, Prof, assuming that he does not, like if he gets the speed Zeb skip, he's still going to have a lot of ammo left available for the fight, so it's going to trim that down by a lot. So, and he's already got beam damage better than new route beam. So when you're already talking about having it, that's like 30 or less shots, which is really not that much time at all. But yeah, good performance. I gotta say, Plumps, outside of the unfortunate crash of the ROM, I'm really glad I called this race because we got to see, in terms of play style and decision making, we got to see some really unique situations in this particular seed. That was pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's kind of what I like the most about Dash. Is that even without, you know, some things like, oh, being able to utilize like pressure valve, meridian stuff. I mean, both runners really executing on a really high level, honestly, as well as showing off some of the different strategies you can use with the changes in Dash Recall.
Yeah, the good news too, and I'll just kind of make a quick announcement. Recall is just one of the sort of projects we're working on. What we would like to have in the future is kind of like a toggle switch for a lot of the things. Like, for example, if you want to play with heat shield in there, but you don't want pressure valve in there, you could turn it off. If you want to play with traditional beams, you could turn them off. Do you see what I'm saying? So we're going to have some countdown. We're going to have some area. We're going to, we're kind of just playing around with a bunch of different things. But ultimately, we want some flexibility for what people prefer. And we'll kind of see what develops from there by the end. But at least those options will be there in case people want that kind of style of play. But man, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad that we got to do this one. And assuming nothing weird happens on the escape, looks like Prof is going to take it and push Vileplume into the semifinals. We've got some really, really great semifinal matchups coming up. I think this is going to secure the end of the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
On the left side of the bracket, we will have Vileplume versus Will Cut Breast for Rupees. Once again, I believe a Brinstar rematch there. And then on the right side, we will have the A-Team versus Chicago Bullies, and that's going to be another great matchup. So everybody, get strapped in for another 2 weeks of really excellent races.
Yeah, I'm just glad that makes me feel a little bit better about myself that I was in one of the 2 best divisions.
You're just going by playoff ranking. Is this where I get to make the joke about how I'm really sad that I got knocked out, but at the same time, it's not so bad because this is the most free time I've had in the last 4 years in a single tournament?
Man, it would have been really interesting. I'm just thinking about like how much time exactly John lost from his death in particular. It feels like it definitely was more than the deficit he has now. Also good for remembering that without Vera, you have to damage down only to 6 and not 3 tanks.
Pretty cool, actually. I'm really excited about the fact that, for example, Eddie and Prof, and we might even have somebody else somewhere that I'm just sort of forgetting off the top of my head, but I believe it's both of those players' first ever Rando official tournament. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're in the semifinals is really cool. So I think Super Metroid Randomizer, I've kind of been predicting this for a while, but we continue to get more and more competitive. More and more good players, more players that continue to improve. It's really, really good for the scene. So this is really exciting. We got some new faces in there making some noise.
Yeah, I personally really like how just kind of close-knit that everyone is like the more experienced random people are helping the newer random people, and just honestly just how incredibly just stacked and consistent the league is. But meanwhile, let's get our GGs for Prof. Prof's going to finish in first place with the official time of 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 13 seconds. Is actually going to secure the sweep for Vileplume, making it into the semifinals.
Yeah, big GG to Prof. Well played. Unfortunate with the situation of the crash, but hopefully we can figure out what exactly caused that, etc., and get it fixed if it was on the code end. But yeah, doing a great job pushing his team to the semifinals. I do want to say, obviously, I have a lot of respect for John as a runner too, and his whole team had a really, really great season. So it's exciting, even though the end is not what they would have preferred, but they really did have a very successful season, making it to the quarterfinals. But we are now joined by our winner today, Professor School in the house. Prof, I'm really sorry that you had to go through a crash, but you persevered and kept your cool, and you played really well, man. Tell us what you thought about the seed, other than the the unfortunate crash there.
Hey, Kip. Hey, Plumps. What's up, GGs? Thank you. Yeah. I'm actually really glad that we have the 10-minute cooldown with the delay to be able to relax a little bit before the interviews, because I was a wreck at the end of that race. I almost totally broke down in tears at the end of that race. I was so stressed out after that crash. I cannot even tell you. I had a little bit of the pre-race jitters. I warmed up real nice. I was feeling good. My movement was good. And this thing that always happens to me since I was a kid, like even doing piano recitals, right when the lights go on, I get a little nervous. My movement was a little jittery for the first little bit of early game. And I feel like I settled in really nice movement, especially through like Bubble Mountain was really, really good. I was pretty happy with it. And yeah, I don't know. To answer your question, right before the race started, I was hooking up my my SDS or FX pack or whatever it is to the USB cable so I could actually connect the download the seed onto my computer. And I must have like bumped the cartridge funny or something, because I think you would have actually caught this on stream when I still had my my practice hack up, but it crashed the practice hack. And then the practice hack went black, and when I reloaded it, my SRM file was gone. All my RAM was gone. So I was like, oh, that's not good. I didn't really know what to make of that. And so I didn't really think anything of it. I probably should have taken the card out and just like removed the micro USB and just cleared everything. But I played for another couple of minutes and it seemed fine. And so I thought I was out of the woods. And then my hypo jump sort of fell apart in the last week or so, and so I bailed on it pretty quickly, and I just decided to do the bomb jump. And I was thinking like, okay, I've got this bomb jump, let me just think, what am I doing next? What am I checking? Where's my health at? Where's my resources at? I was feeling really good about the seed, and then that crash happens, and I was like, you've got to be freaking kidding me, right? And my hands were shaking so bad because I'm like, oh, it's happening again. I'm letting my team down. I'm gonna, I think it's pretty demonstrably true that I'm the weakest remaining runner of the 12 going into semis now. And I was like, I want to be able to do something valuable for my team in this playoffs. And my hands were shaking, physically shaking so bad that I could not do my wall jumps after that reset at Bubble Mountain. And I totally messed up those two attempts. And I took a second and I just like sat there. And my wife was actually sitting on the couch next to me. And I was like, I can't relax. She's like, you're fine. And it's okay. And I took a deep breath and I finally got the lava dive on the third try. And then, yeah, the seed was interesting. I just didn't get to enjoy how interesting the seed was because my mind was just going a mile a minute. And I don't know. It was very stressful. It was really stressful.
Now, I can understand that, man. But you played really well. Like, honestly, particularly before the crash happened, I think you were just kind of hitting basically everything. But I think that you regained your composure really well and played really well moving forward. So I can understand, though, feeling that stress. That's not, that's definitely not a situation you'd prefer to have. But yeah, you handled it really well. And, I'm not going to say who's the best and who's the worst player, but let me just put it this way. I think every single player left in the league is 100% competitive. So I think that you belong right where you are, and I think you're doing a great job, man. So just
I completely agree with that. Like this, not even to try to make you feel better. I legit think, you're moving great, and we were mentioning how it's totally understandable, like how you would feel after something like that happens in the middle of a race when you were playing well.
Thank you. I appreciate those kind words from both of you. I think people in the community that know me well know that I struggle a lot with my own performance and how people perceive me, and I spend, frankly, way too much time thinking about sort of like how I'm perceived and how much I'm sort of valued as a good runner or not. And that's my own personal thing that I sort of need to deal with. But I will say that I think I heard this just when I was popping into chat during the end of the delay there. I think it was Plumps saying that there's just so much camaraderie. And it was in response to, I think, something that the Kip was saying about how great it is to see folks like me and Eddie in the semifinals as brand newcomers to Rando. I mean, I had never run Rando before Kip and Zeb recruited me to fill a slot at SG Live. And I've said this a number of times before in the comms booth here, but I just wanted to reinforce how grateful I am to all of the people who at SG Live helped me. Kip did, Papa Schmo did, Kev did. Zeb in particular has invested an incredible amount of time in my development, and that was really fun because he joined another league that I was in, which was like a vanilla map league, and I was helping him through like Mappo and some other categories. So he and I have built sort of like a really cool bond, and then he and Nevdi brought me in, and I'm just really grateful that I was able to sort of pay them back with a win here and pushing us through the semis. It feels really, really good, and no less against a very good competitor who's a strong runner and a very good rando runner. So GG's to John. And thank you everyone for making this journey so much fun so far.
Yeah, agreed. John, one of our experienced rando players, always a tough matchup, and we are actually also joined by John here. John, welcome in. I gotta start with this. I talked a good bit before kind of the middle portion of this race about how there are more flexibility options for certain plays that you almost would never see in other randomizers that technically are on the table here. And your complete skip of upper Norfair into the lower Norfair play, I thought was really, really cool. So just tell me a little bit about how the seed went for you. Obviously came up just a little bit short, but I really liked the way you approached a lot of it.
The seed went generally well up until lower Norfair, where after playing very badly and watching the game where I was super stressed. That's why I put a save in Kinder Stair, because I was so stressed. I put a save, lower my stress, because if I die or not, depending on where, I can still make it up. But instead, where I die was non-recuperable. But the seed so far was pretty well. When I have bumps or the other easy memes, I often do wreck ship first, because I do find this it's a good play, because if you find gravity suit at a good place like where I found, you can easily went to Meridia, get the item at the plasma beam, which was a good item was ice, and then go straight to dragon and do the about the roll. I find that with, like you said, with that recall, there's a good better than the other randomizer for route operations like what I just did.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about your lower Norfair experience. Obviously, you did have the plasma beam, which is a good utility item, but it also doesn't do as much damage, so you have to supplement the Ridley fight with your supers, etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, just tell us a little bit about how that went.
It went pretty badly with watching the game, because I'm not really used to lower Norfair L run. I don't really do that. I'm not an RBO runner, so but with each shield, make it a lot more comfortable with the way that drain it way slower your damage. But it went generally good. We can say there was some hiccups where watching the game was the worst one, and then you have the key hunter stairs when you go away after killing relay was the other big hiccups of the health rounds. If you ruin those two, I think I could have won that easily.
Yeah, and this next question is for both of y'all, and you can answer however you like. But obviously, one of my personal favorite things about League is, I love the competition, but this is unique because you get a chance to be on a team, you get to practice with each other, you hang out for long periods of time. We get a nice little kind of fun trash talk between the teams, etc. So obviously your team, is wrapping it up here, John, but y'all had a great season. Professor School, you guys are moving forward, but just talk a little bit about, your experience with the league format this year, as opposed to just the individual races.
The team format was really a nice experience. Having to talk with your teammates about how to do some seeds. Sometimes you know trouble to do a seed. If they're more experienced, they can help you a lot with all you routes. If you do a mistake, they will say, "No, you should have done this and that." Do some practice together, and it helps a lot to understand sometimes the randomizer and your mistake you're doing with the team.
Yeah, and I can add to that. the format's excellent. I alluded to another sort of vanilla league. It was a multi-category league that I was in through MGA's Discord. Same thing, playing on teams of 3 or 4 people. It's a lot of fun. You have an opportunity. We set up a side Discord just for my team where we could chat about these things. We've been sharing seeds for months. Even though Nevdi and Zeb are obviously 2 of the best rando runners, so in comparison there's quite a big gap. What that means is that I get to learn a lot from them and sort of lift myself up a lot faster than maybe I would be able to on my own, certainly on my own. But it allows us to do other cool things too. So we're doing VC races together. There's a large group of us. I'll actually say 10 of the remaining 12 people in semis are in the same Discord together, and I think 9 of us have been racing in VC almost every single night, a bunch of different modes, trying to help people prepare. And so it even extends beyond the individual team itself, where people are trying things. If someone takes a death or someone takes a different route, somebody else is immediately opening up the practice hack and saying, is this faster? Is this faster? Is it better to go down this sand pit versus go around? There's something, I think a lot of people will say the same thing and have in their interviews, that it just breeds not only better competition, more fun and friendly competition, but it breeds better runners too. Like, I think the quality, not just for me, but even some of the more experienced people, has also increased because of the degree to which we're pushing each other. I know like Eddie, Zeb, and Nevdi, for example, have been, in addition to a lot of other people, have been really pushing very hard at these different area modes. And I think it's super cool to see, because you can see the development in all of these different people. And for me, that community aspect, that's the reason why I've stuck with this hobby as long as I have, because of that community and team aspect over the individual aspect.
Speaking of that, I do want to give a quick shout out. I don't know if I'm sharing information I'm not supposed to, but Mega Man 2 has been very busy lately. Not only is he responsible for eliminating my team, was it Thursday or Friday, from contention, so he knocked us out, but also he's going to be organizing like a standalone one-on-one, I think area featured randomizer tournament coming up this summer for SG Live. Mm-hmm. So all that stuff that you're talking about everybody practicing and getting better and pushing the competitiveness, we're going to get to see that on display there as well. So I'm really excited about that. We'll get to see a lot of matches there too. Well, Plumps, anything else that you want to add in terms of the race before we wrap this up?
Not a whole lot. I'm just really happy I was able to calm this race. I mean, despite the a lot of unfortunate things happened to both runners, it was extremely entertaining. And both of you executed really well, and I mean, it'll be a great one to watch back again, as painful as it is. And GG to both teams, and looking forward to the semifinals.
Yeah, shout outs to you, not only for calming this race, but you've calmed a lot of races over the event, which definitely appreciated. Anybody who contributes deserves a lot of kudos. And I think we had Paragon, if I remember correctly, tracking on this one. So thank you so much as well. And well, y'all, it is now officially time for the semifinals. So get ready for next week. We got 4 teams remaining. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So the next 2 weeks in a row, we'll be wrapping those matchups up, and then we'll head to the finals after that. Another quick shout out. This week begins, I think, tomorrow, SGDQ, and we will have Super Metroid in the event. So get ready to see Shiny Zenny and Zost do their run at SGDQ. So guys, we will see y'all next mission.